Imagine a world where thousands of gods and goddesses dictated every aspect of life, from the rising of the sun to the flooding of a mighty river. A world where powerful priests held sway, interpreting divine will and amassing immense wealth in their sprawling temples. This was ancient Egypt, a civilization steeped in polytheism for millennia. Then, a pharaoh ascended the throne, not content with merely being a divine king among many deities, but determined to dismantle this entire spiritual universe and replace it with a single, all-encompassing God. This is the story of Akhenaten, the heretic king who dared to challenge the very foundations of Egyptian belief, ignited a religious revolution, and in doing so, lost everything. Our journey begins around 1353 BCE, when Amenhotep IV inherited the opulent throne of the 18th dynasty, a dynasty at the peak of its power and wealth. For generations, the state god Amun, king of the gods, had reigned supreme, his priesthood in Thebes wielding immense influence, arguably rivaling that of the pharaoh himself. This existing power structure, a delicate balance between king and clergy, was about to be shattered. From the very beginning of his reign, Amenhotep IV showed a peculiar devotion to the Aten, the sun disk, which had traditionally been a minor aspect of the sun god Ra. But for Amenhotep, the Aten was not just an aspect, it was the sole, true deity, the universal creator whose life-giving rays touched everything. This was not a subtle shift. It was a radical departure from the polytheistic tradition. Within his first few years, the changes became undeniable. Amenhotep IV began constructing massive open-air temples to the Aten at Karnak, starkly different from the traditional dark enclosed temples dedicated to other gods. These structures were designed to be flooded with sunlight, a direct testament to the visible, ever-present power of the Aten. Then, in his 5th regnal year, the pharaoh took a decisive and shocking step. He changed his name from Amenhotep, meaning Amun is content, to Akhenaten, effective for the Aten. This was a profound declaration, severing his royal identity from the dominant god of Egypt. But Akhenaten's revolution didn't stop there. He commanded the closure of temples dedicated to all other gods, diverting their vast revenues to the cult of the Aten. Teams of workers were dispatched across Egypt to chisel out the names and images of traditional deities, most notably Amun, from monuments, tomb walls, and temple inscriptions. This was an act of deliberate historical and religious erasure, a damnatio memoriae on an unprecedented scale. Imagine the outrage, the spiritual void this created for a deeply religious people whose lives were intricately woven with their pantheon of gods. To further cement his new religion and escape the powerful influence of Amun's priesthood in Thebes, Akhenaten made an astonishing decision. He abandoned the ancient capital and established an entirely new city, Akhetaten, horizon of the Aten, on a virgin site in the middle of the desert. Today this site is known as Amarna. This new capital was meticulously planned and rapidly built, a testament to Akhenaten's unwavering commitment to his singular god. Here the pharaoh, his great royal wife Nefertiti, and their daughters lived and worshipped, their lives depicted in a revolutionary new artistic style that was fluid, naturalistic, and strikingly intimate, a stark contrast to the rigid formality of traditional Egyptian art. Akhenaten declared himself the sole intermediary between the Aten and humanity. The people were not to directly worship Aten, but to worship Akhenaten, who would then intercede on their behalf with the sun disk. This move consolidated not only religious power, but immense political power into the hands of the pharaoh, stripping the traditional priesthoods of their influence and wealth. However, Akhenaten's devotion to his religious reforms came at a tremendous cost. While he was absorbed in his spiritual project, the vast Egyptian empire, accumulated over centuries of military campaigns by his predecessors, began to unravel. Correspondence discovered at Amarna, known as the Amarna Letters, reveal urgent pleas from vassal rulers in the Near East for military aid against encroaching enemies like the Hittites. These pleas largely went unanswered, as Akhenaten's focus remained almost exclusively on internal religious transformation. Egypt's influence abroad waned, and its territorial integrity was jeopardized. Domestically, discontent simmered. The closure of temples and the suppression of ancient cults disrupted the livelihoods of countless priests, artisans, and temple workers. The common people, accustomed to a rich tapestry of gods and goddesses who offered protection and guidance in every aspect of life and death, found themselves alienated by a distant, singular deity whom they could only access through the pharaoh. The traditional funerary practices, centered on Osiris and the afterlife, were also discarded, leaving many Egyptians deeply anxious about their post-mortem fate. When Akhenaten died, likely around 36 BCE, his radical experiment crumbled rapidly. The precise circumstances of his death are unclear, adding to the enigma surrounding his reign. His immediate successors, including the short-lived Smenkhkare and, most famously, the boy king Tutankhaten, quickly began to reverse his policies. Tutankhaten, Akhenaten's probable son, changed his name to Tutankhamun, living image of Amun, signaling a full restoration of the old gods. The capital was moved back to Thebes, Amarna was largely abandoned, and the names and images of Akhenaten and Aten were systematically erased from monuments. It was a deliberate attempt to wipe him from history, a second, more successful damnatio memoriae enacted by those who followed. For centuries, Akhenaten was largely forgotten, his city swallowed by the desert, his name omitted from official king lists. He became the heretic king, a dangerous anomaly to be expunged. Akhenaten's legacy is a testament to the perils of radical ideological change, especially when imposed from above without genuine popular support. He sought to create a perfect spiritual world, but in doing so, he neglected the practicalities of governing an empire and alienated his people. His ambition for a singular god led to the loss of his dynasty's standing, the erosion of Egypt's international power, and the near-complete obliteration of his memory. Yet, ironically, his radical artistic style and the unique archaeological site of Amarna have ensured that, despite all efforts to erase him, Akhenaten remains one of ancient Egypt's most fascinating and controversial figures. A pharaoh who dared to challenge the gods, and in the process changed everything, only to lose it all.